Today's video is brought to you by our good friends over at Nationwide Industries, the Fence Pros' #1 choice. And they are this Fence Pros' #1 choice for a couple reasons. One, we love using their Keystone Traverse latches. They're easy to install. You simply bolt them onto the post. No drilling for rods or cutting the rods required. It's a pretty straightforward installation process. We also love using their full line of galvanized hardware. It shows up quickly and reliably. All right, guys, today's video is titled Angry Neighbor Sues Over Painted Fence. It's a scenario that I think could play out. It has played out, at least here in our neck of the woods. I'm sure you guys may have heard something in your area. It's on the Judge Judy channel. If you'd like to watch the video, it's in its entirety without my commentary. We'll link that in the description below. I think it's important to note that Judge Judy does not give legal opinions. Is my understanding. It's kind of fictionalized drama, court drama. But yeah, let's get right into it.
Pay attention to me. He painted the side of the fence that faces his property a red stain. I'm forming a visual.
Here's a perfect visual picture.
I want you to answer my question.
Okay.
So he painted the fence that only the side that faced his property, a fence that you put in the contract he was to pay for half of, a color that he wanted.
No, I didn't agree to a color he wanted.
No. What he did was he painted the side of the fence. You know, you're obstinate. He painted the side of the fence that faced his property, a fence that he was required to pay half for.
Which did not.
You're not paying attention.
Okay, all right.
A color that pleased him. That's what you're complaining about.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now I'll take a look at your picture.
In the pictures, it does show the property line where the fence is built on my property. He had to trespass onto my property to paint the fence.
That's really the gist of the argument, is that there was a fence built. Now, somewhat typical Judge Judy form. There's about a minute of solid content, and then there's another several minutes of Judge Judy being Judge Judy, just providing some comic relief and a little bit of drama. The few extra tidbits that we tease out of the other 2 minutes of drama is that the neighbor actually paid $700, which could be the neighbor's half of that line of fence, which if the whole yard is $4,500, maybe that's true. The thing I think that's important here is what he said, what the claimant is saying is that the fence is on his side of the property. He said there's a picture that clearly shows that the fence is on his property and that the defendant had to have trespassed to paint it. Well, if the fence is 6 inches inside, he probably didn't have to trespass. I don't think that's the issue here. I think the issue is, well, there's a couple issues. One, if he did pay for part of it, it likely should have been on the property line if they were splitting the cost of that fence. Now, if you watch the channel, you understand my thoughts on putting on the property line because it becomes mutual property, which is how we get into this conversation, is mutually owned property. The neighbor can do what they want with their part of the property. The portion that's on theirs or the side that faces him. In this case, it's somewhat of both. The neighbor did pay or paid part of that fence line, but it's placed on the original guy, the complainant's, I don't know, property. It's on his property. His neighbor painted his fence. I think that the problem here is if it's on his property, at least this likely varies state by state. In the state of Missouri, if it's on his property wholly and completely, then it is his property. It's no different than if, and forget the trespassing arguments. Like I said, if it's 6 inches in, he probably didn't trespass to paint it, or whoever painted it didn't trespass. They likely reached over and painted it, or they sprayed it, however. But the bigger argument is he painted this other guy's property. A silly example would be if the defendant were to take a paint roller with an incredible telescopic handle, reached from his property, reached across and painted the neighbor's house because he didn't like the color of the house that faced him. Well, that would obviously be an issue. You can't paint someone else's house against their wishes. That's how I view this. And I think an actual court would likely have the same thoughts. Maybe a less silly example would be a shed. If a shed is placed near the property line, my neighbor's shed is faced on the property line, the part that faces me that they can't see, I want to paint it orange because that happens to be a color I like. I'm not allowed to reach over and paint that thing orange. That's their property. The fence, I feel like, is in that same example. If the fence is completely on the neighbor's property, you can't paint it. There is a question about that one neighbor paid for part of it, but I still think that's not a non-argument when the fence is wholly and completely on one neighbor's property. The other neighbor can't paint it. One guy's opinion. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. For now, Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences typically make good neighbors. And I'll catch you next time.